Sanby, Trigger, Hugo, Vivian, Bernice and Zhu Yuan. We have a lot of very interesting agents coming up very soon in Zone 0. And in this video, I want to talk about them. Hello everybody, my name is Hako and welcome to the channel. It's been a short minute. I took the last week off to celebrate my birthday with my other half and just touch some grass. We had an absolutely lovely time. But I missed you guys, so now it's like time to snap back to reality and let's talk some Zenless. So we have a lot of very interesting agents coming up ahead. And in my absence, I've received a bunch of questions like what I think of these agents, which one people should go for, etc. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at them and like break them down. And now, before we look into the characters, whenever it comes to me giving out like pulling advice, anybody that's been following the channel for a while know what I'm about to say. Pull with your heart. Take a look at all of these characters coming, like just from a standpoint like design-wise, etc. Like which one of these entices you the most, and I would say go for that one. Because the way to have fun in horror games is to like pull for the characters that you for some reason want, maybe not too much about the meta. They make these games like easy enough so that you basically can clear all content with just like a well-invested character that you love. But from a meta perspective, let's take a little bit of a look at these characters, and I'm gonna tell you like why I'm excited about some of them, maybe not so much about some of the other ones. So if we started looking at Sanby, which is coming out very freaking soon, Sanby is gonna be an electric attacker, electric on-field attacker. She's gonna be able to buff aftershock. Now out of all of these new characters, I put Anby at maybe the third place, like my priority list of like who to get and like who to invest a little bit in. Because at the end of the day, she is an on-field electric carry, and I have a Yanagi M0, I don't have her engine, but she still trivializes everything in the game. The fact that Yanagi can still like trigger her polarity disorders, I think makes her longevity, like I think a year from now I'm still gonna be using my Yanagi, but I think there's a high chance that we've gotten another on-field electric attacker by that point. But for anyone that started out after Yanagi's banner, and that maybe not, fully vibe with Hermasa, Sanby is gonna be a very good pick, like for your account. It's a very big power boost. And the way you kind of want to approach your roster and approach your team building in Zenless Zone 0 is that we kind of focus on our carries first, and then the supports for those carries. And electric carries are good to have because there are a lot of like electric weak stages in, and those are especially annoying like getting past, because usually they include robots that puts on a shield and they need to be either shocked or stunned. So always carries first. Because even if you get a go-to support like Astra, if the only attacker carry that they can support is Anton, like you'd rather have it the other way around. You'd rather have, Anby being supported by Lucy. Carries first, then we focus on support. So me as someone that's been playing for a while that has all of the units, I'm actually more excited about some of the other characters. And speaking of some of the other characters, after Sanby we do get Trigger. Now before the reveal that Vivian was an ether anomaly, although I've been saying that from the get-go since we saw her, like she screams either anomaly to me. Trigger was the character I was most interested in. She might still be, like we still don't have like any official information about like Vivian other than her speciality. But just going off that, the fact that anomaly is cracked, they are, just objectively a better carry than attackers. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One being that anomaly characters quite often, like their best other teammate is another anomaly character. We don't see that with attackers. Like so far we don't have a single team that like benefits of having two attackers more than, having something else. But due to the simple fact that Disorder is quite a hard-hitting little son of a bitch, two Anomaly Agents teams are actually really, really good. And two, they make reactions, worth millions of damage, and attackers, doesn't really have anything up to par with that. But before we talk about Vivian, let's talk some about Trigger. One of the reasons I'm super excited about Trigger is that she's an off-field stunner. Now, off-fielders, they are few and far in between, but they are very, very freaking good. If I were to ask you what's your most valuable resource when it comes to like combat and clearing content in this game, what would you say? I personally would say that it is field time. And the reason why like Caesar and Astra are such good supports, one, they do provide a big buff, but first and foremost, it is that they require almost no field time whatsoever. Now, as you know, if you follow the channel, I love Sakuga, I love this little gremlin, but she does take up quite a lot of field time when she goes into like reapply her buffs, get her stacks, all of that. Meanwhile, Caesar and Astra are just boom boom. And the fact that off-field agents are like so rare really adds into the longevity. Take Burnice for example. The fact that she's an off-field agent makes her so freaking valuable. Now, we are probably due for like another fire anomaly character within the upcoming months, but I don't think that we're due for like another off-field anomaly agents in a long time. And the fact that we're now getting an off-field stunner is super interesting. And a universal one at that. Like, Lighter is super good, but I wouldn't say that he's a universal one, because he buffs fire and he buffs ice. Can you run him outside of fire and ice team? Yes, but you lose out on so much of his buff. Meanwhile, looking at Trigger's kit, she's like much more universal and will increase the amount of damage an enemy takes, even outside of a stun window. Which is good, and it fixes one of like Stunner's biggest problems. They require too much field time for what they do. Also, one of the reasons why anomaly agents are, considered to be better than attackers, because they don't super much care about stun windows. They don't run a stun agent, because it's like a clear time loss, it's a DPS loss to actually slot in a stunner, instead of just, continuously nuke them with whatever element that they are. And that is why I'm super excited about Trigger, because she allows us to bring a stunner into teams that would traditionally not want a stunner. And just like with Astra and Caesar, I surmise the Trigger will be able to kind of fit into every team. Which makes it so, like, if you have your carries in place, like your Oligon carries, I think the Trigger is super interesting. Obviously, they're still tweaking her multipliers and her numbers, so, could it be an instance where everything is just cranked down a little bit too low on release? Maybe. We'll see. But just from a design standpoint of like how she works, I have my eyes on Trigger. And I do think that a lot of people might be overlooking Trigger, like simply because she's a stun agent. But my little reflection, my little 5 cents is that Trigger might be a lot more useful and like better than people might be giving her credit for at the moment. And I do think that people that don't pick up Trigger now might regret it a little bit in the future, but we will see. As for the rerunners, we get Bernice and we get Zhu Yuan. Bernice is gonna run alongside with Sanby, and Zhu Yuan is coming back on Trigger's banner. Now, Burnice is still a very, very freaking top tier agent. I'd say her like spot at the top of the tier list hasn't moved at all since her release, and the biggest factor of that is that she's an off-field agent. An off-field anomaly agent. She is so freaking useful, and any anomaly team I run like can always benefit from my Burnice. Now, a little bit of a caveat with Burnice. In order to really use her efficiently, you kinda want either her engine or her M1 just to have an easier time keeping her in the nitro fuel state. Burnice's most important quality is that she doesn't require a lot of field time, but without either of those, she does require somewhat of field time just because you always need to like refill her energy. Or refill the nitro fuel state. Now, as for Zhu Yuan, as I said in the beginning, always pull for the characters that you personally like vibe with, that you want, and I know we have a lot of Zhu Yuan fans, so like, if you missed Zhu Yuan, you started playing after her, she's a 1.0 character, and you really want her, I would say go for her, but from a meta perspective, with the knowledge that we're getting Ether Anomaly in the next patch, I personally would put her at like the bottom of like my pull priority. Like the vast difference in power from, a 1.0 attacker to a 1.7 anomaly character, it's not even gonna be funny. Zhu Yuan is gonna look like an A rank. Just in the same way that Ellen looks, side by side with Miyabi. Or for that matter, Hugo that we are getting, also in the 1.7. So Hugo is gonna be an ice attacker, so same as Ellen, and yeah, I don't think that the vast gulf between the power levels is even gonna be funny. And since they announced Vivian first, I'm guessing that she's the first one out on the banner, on the 1.7. And now, say for whatever reason you could only pick one character out of all of these characters, I would probably recommend Vivian. Once again, anomaly characters are just that good. And Ether is a very scarcely populated element. We only have Zhu Yuan, Astra and Nicole, which means that outside of limited banners, only Nicole is our only Ether agent. So just with Vivian being Ether, like increases her value by quite a bit. But the fact that she's also Anomaly, which is the best speciality in the game, stacked up with the fact that she does seem to be somewhat of an off-fielder. If we just take a little bit of a look at the disc set that we're getting in 1.6, I think Vivian is gonna be like the next real meta unit after Miyabi. So say for example that you are free to play, you've already like fully maxed out the Hermasa that we got for free. In that case, I would probably say that instead of like replacing Hermasa with Sanby, maybe it would be slightly wiser to like ensure that you can get Vivian. And after Vivian, we are getting Hugo. Now, Hugo is gonna be an ice attacker. And now, ice is also a pretty rare element. We don't get too many agents in it. But what we do have is like the strongest agent in the game is an ice agent, and it is Miyabi. A lot of people started playing on the 1.4 banner, so a lot of people will have Miyabi. Like, if you use, from a meta perspective, the need for Hugo might, not be there. But if you missed Miyabi, you took a break or like whatever, and your only ice carry is Ellen, boy, yeah, maybe then it is time to like upgrade. Because Ellen, bless her shark heart, I love using her, but base kit Ellen is kind of struggling, at least in Deadly Assault. And she isn't gonna struggle less with time. But if you do have Miyabi, the meta need for Hugo might, diminish a whole lot. His character model does look kinda cool, but it's not really for me. He might actually be the first character I am skipping. I have a fully stacked Villain and I have an M0 Miyabi with her engine. I really don't need another ice agent that I don't find to be too appealing. But once we get more gameplay from him, maybe I'll fall in love. But as of right now, out of like all of the new characters, he ends up kinda in the bottom. So me personally, the characters I'm most interested in is Trigger, Vivian, Sanby. And say that I had just started out in Zenless, and if I managed to pull Evelyn, I might be skipping Bernice, be picking up Sanby, and then maybe making sure that I get Vivian. But say that I was starting out in the 1.6, like completely fresh, I would first and foremost have my eyes set on Bernice, and then Vivian. And probably Sanby, because I do reckon that the Yanagi rerun is still pretty far away. So yeah, peeps, that's my thoughts of the upcoming characters in the 1.6 and the 1.7. Let me know down in the comments, let your fellow community members know what characters are you aiming for. But yeah, I'll stop myself from yapping more, and I'll thank you so much for watching. And it is good to be back from my little break, so expect me now back daily, back to my usual bullshit. And a big thank you from all of the YouTube peeps that came over to Twitch to celebrate my birthday last week. It was a proper bop. So peeps, stay safe, hit that bell notification, and until next time, Hako out.